superb panel on News Hour tonight. I'm joined by Nisha Agrawal. She's CEO of Oxfam India. Also joined with me in the studio after a long time, Swaminathan Aiyar, consulting editor of the Economic Times. With us tonight, Farrukh Dhondy, author and former commissioning editor of Channel 4 from London. Also from Mumbai tonight, Suhel Seth, managing partner of Counselage, one of India's best-known veteran sharpshooting diplomats, former High Commissioner to Pakistan, G Parthasarthy. My first question, however, is to Emma Boon, who's campaign director of the Taxpayers Alliance. Ms. Boon, you know, people in India are a little amused that Britain is so interested in giving aid. In fact, there is this story about how the British Chancellor for the Exchequer, in a private meeting with Indian Finance Minister Arnab Mukherjee, literally did not let go of his hand, saying, please accept our aid. Why is Britain so interested in giving India any aid? I mean, we don't seem to want it. We've called it peanuts.
I have no idea why British politicians are so determined to give aid to India when it's clearly not wanted by Indian politicians who are representing the Indian people. I think this shows that perhaps this aid programme here in the UK is more about doing something to build political capital than actually about helping people who really need help and helping the world's poorest, which is how they sell that aid to British taxpayers who are paying for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the aid would be far better directed to the growing number of poor people in the United Kingdom. But what causes me concern, Mr. Parthasarthy, is what International Development Secretary Andrew Mitchell said last year. He said that the $280 million of aid to India was partly designed to win the bid. He was talking about the military jet bid. He said it's an important relationship. The focus is also about seeking to sell the Typhoon. What is worse, Mr. Parthasarthy, than giving us aid on the one hand and expecting to sign a defence deal on the other?
Well, I think there's been some debate here in the UK about whether or not we were aiming for aid to get trade, whether or not politicians were hoping that aid was going to lead to trade.
In fact, large number of countries were sent formal communications, particularly the Scandinavians and others who made a big hoopla about it. But then they came back and said, look, we feel insulted. So we withdrew that, and basically the policy is, if you want to give aid because you feel that as a developing country, which we are, you want to pass on money, fine, that's your business. We are not asking for it. But let's also remember that even in British and other societies, there are people who have a feeling of affection for India. They have connections with Indian NGOs and the sort of money they wish to give. But the problem is, it is their doing. We are not asking for it. As far as I am concerned, I won't lose any sleep if Britain ended the aid. But I don't think you should look at this totally in those terms. If you see what we get from Japan or Germany, they behave in a very self-respecting manner, much larger than what the British gave. And there are no strings attached. And in fact, we never have politicians or senior government officials discussed aid. They want to give us money, we sign an agreement with them, and it goes to whoever are the financial institutions concerned. So we don't need the aid. In 2001 we made it very clear. But if someone out of a goodness of feeling towards India wants to give it, fine. And in an ultimate analysis, you know, history is taking a strange reversal. We were colonized by the British East India Company through trade and investment. And today Indian investment in the United Kingdom is higher than United Kingdom investment in India. But look, we have a large ethnic population there. There are people of goodwill. So if some MP or some aid organization suggests these things, we should ignore it and let the British government do what it wants to do.
Why should we ignore it?
Because we didn't ask them for the aid in any case.
No, why should we ignore it? Because, you know, what I feel is that, you know, over the last couple of days, especially since the Rafale deal was announced, it is as if the disguise has been lifted. It's now clear. Because now, in the aftermath of the Rafale deal...
I think Arnab, their reaction is in the press from isolated MPs. Our MPs have given their reply. One of our ministers have given their reply. But as I said, we made it very clear, we don't need it. If you want to give it, it's your business. So let them take a decision. The decision is theirs. Why should we, as Mr. Natwar Singh says, get excited about this?
No,
it's their decision.
No, we don't need to get excited.
And they know we are a growing economy. If they have economic problems, they don't want to give this money. Fair enough. They are welcome to give it to Mauritania.
Well, they are not giving it to Serbia, they are not giving it to Iraq, they are not giving it to Vietnam, and I certainly think they are as deserving as us. The question is, they want to do business with us, and that's why they're giving it to us. And then the International Development Secretary keeps saying that India, poor India, 400 million people live on less than $1.25 a day. We have to help this poor little country out of its terrible situation. And when they don't get the Rafale deal, then this whole talk begins about pulling back aid. Suhel wanted to come in. Suhel.
See, I have 3 or 4 points to make. Number one is, when Pranab Mukherjee made that statement, it was made in a particular context. It would be very ungracious of us to disregard that aid or to say that, oh, we don't need your aid, it's peanuts. Because if it was peanuts, then we should have been men enough not to take it in the first place. So ingratitude is not a virtue except with Indian politicians and British politicians. Number two, as you very rightly said, I think Cameron and his ministers made one fundamental mistake, that they, whether it is true or not, that they linked aid to India's defense security. Clearly, the Indian Air Force and the Ministry of Defense selected what they believed was the best fighter jet for India's defense, period. To link it to that is silly. What is worse, Arnab, is the manner in which, much like what Australian media did when the race issues happened, the English media is now berating both the British politicians for their ineptitude and their incompetence,
for a reason,
and therefore trying to muddy the waters as far as India's image is concerned by saying, oh, why does India need aid? The realities are different. India does need aid, but it doesn't need aid with strings attached.
For a good reason. We're not a poor country. I'm sorry to say this, but 2009, Swaminathan Aiyar, we were upgraded from the World Bank, by the World Bank, from poor to a middle income country. Our social spending funds are going up by 20%. Our economy is going up by 9%. Do we really need this handout anymore? I don't know, unless there's some deep symbolism to it.
Well,
importance to the symbol. 1 minute, Farrukh, coming to you. Swaminathan Aiyar wants to come in. Right after that, Farrukh, coming to you. Yeah.
First, I'm sorry, we are still a very poor country. Yes. Just go outside and look on the roads at the people.
Sure we are.
I don't need data from the World Bank.
Yeah, but that requires us to reconfigure where we need to spend our own money.
The British government is giving aid to Caribbean islands with a per capita income of $10,000 to $15,000.
Yeah.
We are still at 1,600. We're at 1/10.
Why would a country, Swami, let me ask you, you're a realist, why would a country like the United Kingdom, which I'm sorry to say is completely and thoroughly cash strapped, which has slashed its police budget by 20%, which is closing public libraries, which is sacking soldiers, which is getting rid of its aircraft carriers and Harrier jump jets, why would they be giving us charity?
No.
Out of the sheer love for our people or for something else?
No. In Whitehall, if you've seen Yes Minister, as Sir Humbert would have explained, we measure our importance by the size of our budgets and the amount of staff. There's no bureaucrat who will ever cut 1 cent of the budget or one possible employee, if at all he can. But hold on, let's come back. There is no country, virtually, which does not mix both charity and commercial objectives. Yeah, India is giving aid to a large number of African countries. Is it charity? No, it's absolutely mixed with commercial incentives. We are building these hydroelectric dams in Bhutan. Is it just charity? No, absolutely no. We are getting cheap hydroelectric. Look, there's nothing common. Every single country that gives aid has double motives. To some extent it may be charity, to some extent it is commercial, and Britain is no different from India in this particular respect.
Why would you go through this embarrassment that to a country like India? We spend $36 billion a year on defense, and we get into this sense of, great cogitation about whether we should take $200 million from the British. Why do we have to go through this pain? Let me ask Farrukh Dhondy if he wants to come in. Yes, Farrukh.
Yes, I do. I want to say, first of all, that the reason Britain gives aid to India is to maintain a special relationship with India. That relationship has been disrupted by the non-typhoon deal, by not buying Typhoon. Yeah. I think that this government, in the interest of aid and the interest of trade, wants to give aid to maintain a kind of verbal relationship with India, a special one, so that France, Germany, Japan and the rest of the trading world don't usurp the position or the relationship that the two countries had. Secondly, the British government is aware that there is a large liberal section of the electorate which wants to do things and still feel that it is somehow an imperial power and not be Little Britain, as some conservatives and people who want to leave the EEC and so forth
the greatest myth.
insist. Now, the one thing that has happened in the last 2 days is that the Daily Mail and the Telegraph and whatnot have concentrated on the fact that very little of this aid reaches the targets at which it is aimed. Corruption and malpractice and abuse of all sorts swallow this tiny, the people who are eating the peanuts are the monkeys in the civil service, and the in-between people, and the peanuts are not being handed out to the people who deserve it. I think that the one thing that has not been mentioned,
it's a bit self-righteous to give aid, it's a bit self-righteous, isn't it, Farrukh, to give aid hoping that you're going to get a fighter deal. When you don't get a fighter deal, you suddenly wake up to the realization that the Indian bureaucracy is not doing a good job of taking your money.
I don't think that the peanuts matter one way or the other. What does matter is that Pranab Mukherjee says we don't need the aid. Nirupama Roy says we don't need the aid.
Yes.
Fine. What the hell are they doing? What is this government now doing about the disparity in the poor and the rich in India? If Pranab Mukherjee says we don't need the aid, we can look after ourselves, he should tell us, one, how he's going to defeat the corruption, and two, how he's going to give the aid to the people who really need it in India. And they're quite right. The per capita income of India is much lower than that of the Caribbean islands who receive some aid.